Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Ezekiel and I'm here with my dear friend and colleague and collaborator Kim O'Donnell today, and we're going to talk a little bit about an upcoming program that we're offering called the Deep Psyche Daylong. So I'd like to start and just invite you, Kim, to introduce yourself a little bit.
Hi everyone, I'm Kim. I grew up here in Floyd County and am excited to have been back from Richmond, Virginia in my retirement and working with my dear friend Ezekiel to offer this wonderful program.
Thanks, Kim. So Kim and I have been collaborating for a while now. We have a long relationship, and we have been leading retreats together for the last three. This is our third year technically, which
Third
is
year.
kind of crazy. So let's get into just talking about the program a little bit.
Sounds great.
So we've decided to call this program the Deep Psyche Daylong for a number of reasons. And I'm wondering if maybe we can just speak a little bit to why we chose that name. Like, why Psyche? Why Deep Psyche? Do you want to speak to that?
Sure.
Okay.
I think it's because we both share a desire to do depth work within ourselves, to have a deep connection with nature, to have a deep connection with self. And some of the practices that we're going to be engaging in on this day are really designed to help us access parts of ourselves that may not be on the surface and that we might not be aware of or might not take the time to invite forward. And so I think we're looking for a depth of experience in some of the practices that we'll be holding space for.
Yeah, just to bounce off that, for me, there's really similar to what you were saying, maybe just to say it in my own words. There's a recognition that I have of the fact that the totality of my being includes more than just what I'm aware of in my consciousness, my ego consciousness. That there are impulses and longings and fears and things that affect my behavior, but that sort of reside outside of my conscious awareness. And it's been very important for me in my life and my journey to work to bring those things into consciousness so that I'm not ruled by them and governed by them, but that I actually can be in relationship with them, so that I'm not lashing out or being ruled by fear. So this work for me, it's really in the context of, not just my own personal development and not just the development of community and building these deep, intimate connections with others, and not just about building deep relationships with the land, but it's really in the context of the cosmos. We live in an evolving cosmos, that the Earth is part of this greater cosmic process that has been unfolding over almost 14 billion years. And that life emerged on Earth and life has been evolving on Earth. And we as humans find ourselves waking up on the crest of this wave of cosmic evolution and tasked with this question of, asking, what does it mean? Like, what does it mean to be human today in this moment, given this inheritance that we have, both good and bad, of bodies and of culture and of history. And there's this recognition that, we're not separate from the earth process. We're not separate from the cosmic process. We are actually integral members and integral expressions of this process. And so the work of coming to know ourselves, it doesn't just lead to greater self-knowledge and greater happiness and greater peace and tranquility. I mean, yes, to all those things, but it's really the way in which we participate in the ongoing expression of this larger process in which we're embedded. So it feels really important to me to make that connection with the personal and the cosmological.
Yeah, that's really beautifully said, and it's setting it in a context, right? And framing beyond personal development, the reason to do any of this, right, is in co-creation with what's evolving around us, and to understand that we're not separate from it. And every contribution we make to doing that part contributes to the whole and to the evolving story, as you say. We're a part of that evolving story. And how do we occupy our place with as much awareness and consciousness as possible? And part of that is accessing things that we're not consciously aware of, and giving ourselves the time and space to experience a different level of consciousness to bring alive, right?
I think about the state of the world today, given climate change, given the war in Ukraine, the COVID pandemic, the social media era, all these things that really deeply affect who we are. And the consciousness that we've inherited is largely based, for those of us here in the West, it's largely based on this worldview of separation, this worldview that humans are somehow separate from the rest of the natural world. And clearly that has not gone so well. It's led to this really critical moment that we find ourselves in. And so as we're moving forward and asking, like, okay, what can we do? Yes, we need technologies, and yes, we need policy. Like, we need all of these things, and consciousness changes in the individual.
Absolutely, absolutely, Ezekiel. And one of the things that brings up for me is that not only have we separated ourselves from the natural world and from the planet we live on, but we have separated ourselves from ourselves. And for me, it really starts there. If you have no relationship with yourself, it's very difficult to have a relationship with anything else, with the land, with trees, with animals, with other humans, if you don't have a relationship with yourself. And so that can be cultivated in lots of different ways, right? I can cultivate relationship with myself by being on the land. I can cultivate relationship with myself through some of the practices that we're inviting, the mandala practices, the discovery writing practices. And it's never separate from everything else, but it's important that we know who we are in relation to the whole. And we never do it without the participation, even if we're not conscious of it, of everything else that's here with us.
Yeah, so given that context, maybe we can speak a little bit more, with a little more focus on what this day-long retreat is actually going to entail. This is actually the first day-long that we'll be offering. Prior to this, we've done programs that have been at least 4 days in length. So this is a new format that we're actually really excited about, hoping that it'll be more accessible to folks who work and have families. So basically, the structure of the day will consist of 4 main practices. We'll have lunch in between, and really what I'd like to do now is just speak a little bit to what those 4 practices are. And I'm going to be guiding 2 of those. Kim's going to be guiding 2 of those. So maybe we can just each talk about the things we'll be
That's
leading.
great.
Would you like to start?
Sure. One of the practices that I'll be guiding us in is a practice of working with mandalas. And mandala work has been done for centuries, really, in different ways and with different traditions. And the main idea of mandala work is that working in the circle, what we offer there, not in a space of rational creation, but from a space of spontaneity and quiet meditation, teaches us something about things we wouldn't access in a different way. So it's a creative, artistic expression, and there's something about the circle holding whatever comes through us. It's not about being an artist. Everybody can do mandala work and learn about themselves. It's about allowing something that we don't control and we don't effort to come forth from us and to learn from it, to see what it's there to teach us. It's a beautiful process. I've done mandala work for probably 20 years and have really learned a lot about myself. Anyone can do it. It's accessible to all of us.
So maybe we can just ping back and forth. And
sure.
One of the practices I'm going to be guiding and inviting folks into is could call it deep imagery, and it's really a way of accessing and developing the deep imagination. And one of the reasons why imaginal work is really important to me is that I really see the imagination as a point of connection between consciousness and unconsciousness. The imagination can be an opportunity, a portal through which the unconscious can be invited into consciousness, as really all the practices that we're going to be doing are. So in deep imagery work, what it basically consists of is going within and allowing the unconscious to generate images that we then relate to. So we basically go on a journey that involves imaginal figures that are generated by the unconscious, and it also involves our participation. So we're actually there with our ego consciousness deciding how are we going to engage with these figures, what are we going to do next, where are we going to go. And after having led this process for a number of times, I never cease to be amazed by really what emerges and what people discover, and just what is possible when we create a space for the creative mind to emerge and to really do its thing. I mean, I have two young children, and to see them so deeply immersed in their play, which is so real to them. There's no differentiation between, oh, this is imagination, but this is the real life. When I'm doing my taxes or making dinner, like that's real.
Right.
It's one seamless continuum, and often, I watch my children make sense of the world through their imaginative play. Like if they've had a hard day or a fight or something, like they will take that into their play and work through it and discover things that they otherwise wouldn't know. And unfortunately, we really lose touch with that imaginative capacity. We write it off as this frivolous thing, as child's play, when in fact, I think it's a really central function of healing and development that we have to get in touch with if we are to come into our fullest expression.
Yes, really wonderfully said. And I especially like the part resonant too with the mandala work. I like how you framed that as allowing the images to appear and then allowing them to speak to you. Very much what mandala work is as well, is allowing the images to flow through and allowing them to engage with you and being willing to engage with them. So yeah, it's great.
So how about discovery writing?
The second piece that I'll be leading is a practice that's really transformed my life, honestly. And we call it discovery writing, and it's really a wonderful opportunity to allow yourself to know yourself by free writing, really, and writing with a question and just not editing, not stopping, not pausing to evaluate or judge what's coming forward. I can't really say that. How can I possibly? And just really allowing yourself to express what's true for you in that moment. And I've learned so much about myself in that process of not holding back and reading it after and just really finding a lot of wisdom within me that if I were sitting down to craft a piece of writing, which this is not about that. It's not even about good punctuation or grammar. It doesn't make any difference at all. I wouldn't have known things about myself that I come to know through the discovery writing process. It's a practice I engage in regularly and have for years, and I've learned a lot about myself by doing it. It's a beautiful thing to share in community as well. And you don't have to be a writer. You don't have to aspire to be a writer. It's really about knowing yourself and accessing things that we might set aside or judge as being, oh, this is not good enough to put down on paper or whatever. It's really not about performance in any way. And most people I find, most people think they can't do it. I can't write, I can't do this. And I have never encountered a single person who couldn't do it and who wasn't really surprised and moved by their own connection with self when they've done it.
Yeah, when I've done the discovery writing with you, I've had this experience, or the metaphor that comes is really one of harvesting.
Yes, I love that metaphor.
where it feels like there's so much that's like bubbling up and
Mm-hmm.
churning within me, and then the discovering writing practice is almost like a way for that fruit that has been developing
Mm-hmm.
on the vine. It's a way for me to go in and pluck it and um, yeah, to really harvest the wisdom
Mm-hmm.
that has
Mm-hmm.
been emerging.
Mm-hmm.
So the final practice that I'll speak to, I would maybe generally call deep nature connection. More specifically, what it's going to look like is an opportunity for solo time on the land here. This is the land that Kim and her partner Anita steward. It's 80 acres.
About 70.
70. Okay.
Beautiful, beautiful land.
Yeah, it's mature forests. And this practice of solo time on the land, there's different ways that I think about it, different ways to approach it. Basically, what I would say is that it's an opportunity to experiment with engaging with the living world in a way that we don't typically engage with the living world. Typically our consciousness treats the living world as dead matter. We treat the living world as a bundle of resources to be transformed into something for human use. Maybe we treat it as a place for recreation and having fun, or a place where we admire beauty, But all of those ways of interacting with the living world don't give the living world subjectivity. They don't acknowledge the fact that just as we have an interiority, an inner experience, I believe that the living world, all members of the living world, have an interiority. And so this opportunity, this invitation that we're going to offer up to be on the land is really going to be focused on connecting with the members of the living world, the non-human members, in such a way that we're acknowledging their subjectivity and we're inviting forth contact with that other subjectivity. Um, this is a practice that has profoundly changed my life. It's sort of like the difference between living in this disenchanted world where I feel completely isolated and marooned versus living in a world that feels enchanted and yeah, just there's an abundance of life and of possibility and wisdom and intelligence and um, yeah, for me the sense of belonging is very deeply connected to this practice. Feeling my own consciousness, my own experience as part of this living web of the Earth community, where it's like I'm not the only one who's having an experience here. We're all having an experience. As Nathan was talking about recently, I have my own story, my own biography. You have your story, your biography.
Mm-hmm.
All of the trees on this land have their own story. The creek has a story. This mountain has a story.
Right.
And to be able to situate ourselves in the context of this tapestry of stories is a way of really, weaving ourselves back into the world and cultivating the capacity to move through the world with empathy, with a deep sense of empathy, a deep sense of connection, a deep sense of belonging. And when I think about the state of the world and this sort of climate catastrophe, I don't know how we can move forward through that without developing this capacity, without learning or relearning to see ourselves as part of the living web of Earth. So yeah, this practice will really be an opportunity to, in an experiential, embodied way, try on this other way of seeing and interacting with the world.
Yes, and I know you've spoken of this too. Janine, our teacher, Janine Hogan, has a phrase of acting as if. Right? Acting as if the trees are listening, acting as if they're wanting relationship with you as much as you're wanting relationship with them, and inviting that kind of connection with the more than human world, which has also changed my life to do that. And many times been in these woods and been on my knees and with trees and just asking to be witnessed and witnessing them and thanking them for all of the contributions that they make to the beauty of my life. And it's the sense of connection and belonging is really deep. And it's someone has said, and it feels really true to me. You can't. It's harder to harm what you love, harder to hurt something that you have a relationship with, easier to protect and care for it when you love it. And we can't love it if we don't engage with it and know it and see it for what it has to offer in the web of life.
As a way of summarizing all that we've said, it makes me, really think about this moment of transition that we find ourselves in terms of the dominant worldviews really having run their course. The worldviews of patriarchy, of capitalism, of consumerism, of white supremacy, like all of these things.
Of domination over
nature. Dominator culture in general. Like these ways of seeing the world and seeing ourselves in the world, we know that they don't work. We know that they don't have good outcomes. And so we need alternatives. And like, yes, we can look to other people and other traditions for inspiration, but we also have a responsibility, each of us, to do the work of living into alternatives, of discovering what it means to find a way of orienting in the world that's really authentic and enlivening, and that actually enhances life as opposed to destroys it. So
yes,
this work, it's like, yes, it's a day long, yes, it's personal development, but it's really, I think, radical work of dismantling the worldviews that we carry inside of us for the sake of allowing something new to emerge that's life-giving.
Yes, well said. Very exciting.
So hope that you can join us. We're going to be gathering for this retreat on Saturday, May 21st, right here on this land. The retreat is going to be from 9 until 6. We have an incredible lunch that's being prepared by our dear friend and chef, Emma Wyman. So
a meal not to be missed.
Not to be missed. We'll be well nourished. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And we have a few spots left. We have, I think, half of the spots are filled up at this point. So if you're interested, highly encourage you to sign up and see what it's all about.
Yes, we'd love to share the day with you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.